La ike dan le dan jin ge rubun da dan mi ike nan dan. Zhuwa gunji zhanan ji zamba dan je ge du da ji ju den do. In the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of the demons and humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. So now that I've imagined as a teacher that I can bring all sentient beings here to be able to hear this teaching, which will allow them to remove the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, wherever they are in terms of path, if they are sentient beings. So I've invited all of these beings now in my mind, and with this powerful prayer from the prayer of noble conduct, to come here and be able to, in their own individual languages, with their own, whatever their aptitudes are, be able to hear exactly what they need to hear to be able to evolve into the state of perfection, perfect wisdom, perfect skillful means, perfect love, compassion, perfect power that the Buddha and only the Buddha who has woken up and is omniscient possesses. So I'm imagining that I'm gathering these beings all here in the hell-hungry ghost animal, human demigods and gods, to be able to, in their own individual languages, hear this teaching and evolve. And by doing so, I'm creating imprints in my mind to be able to connect with all sentient beings and to be able to eventually love them all, have compassion for them all. Because in order for me to experience complete reliability and bliss, I have to be able to connect with every single sentient being in the universe, as a bodhisattva tries to do more and more and more along the bodhisattva path, in order to experience that bliss that comes from other cherishing. And the bliss that the Buddha has is the greatest bliss, because the Buddha cherishes all sentient beings. The object of observation of the Buddha's love and compassion is all sentient beings. The Buddha says every single sentient being I will bring to the state of Buddhahood by teaching them the truth of suchness so that they can individually evolve. So I've imagined all of these beings are here. Now you as participants, imagine that you call out all sentient beings' names in their individual language, in their, in any way skillfully that they'll need to be called. And imagine that the suffering of the lower realms is just turned off for a moment so that they can hear you in their language and be drawn to this teaching. And imagine that the happiness that's so distracting in the higher realms is just kind of put on pause for a minute so that these beings can hear you and see the importance of being invited here. So now imagine that, it is in the Lam Rim, it talks about, imagine you bring all of your friends and loved ones, all neutral beings, and then all those beings you have difficulties with in this life, that you label as enemy, but we recognize when we do the meditation on bodhicitta that in previous lives they've been as close to us and taken care of us in the most complete ways when we were completely vulnerable. We've merely forgotten about it. So imagine now that you are calling all sentient beings here, even those beings who are on the 10th bodhisattva ground and still have some sort of obstructions to omniscience. You're calling them here to be able to hear whatever it is they need to hear. And you imagine that you are leading them here and then leading them in these various prayers. So now that you have imagined that every sentient being is here, any being who still has any remaining afflictive obstructions to omniscience, you've brought here to evolve because you know that you want happiness. You want to be free from suffering. All sentient beings want happiness and want to be free from suffering. And the only way to achieve perfect happiness and perfect freedom from suffering is to remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. And this is the material that serves to harm those things, serves to harm the afflictions and uproot the afflictions, so that we can achieve those goals that we want and that all sentient beings have in common of wanting to. And we recognize that all beings are equally important. All beings want happiness. All beings want to be free from suffering. Our bliss, our reliability depends upon other sentient beings, depends upon learning how to love them in a complete way. So imagine that you've gathered all beings here. So now we can begin to participate in this activity. I was doing meditation this morning and thinking, we should invite these beings right away, even before any kind of introduction is made, because we want them to hear the entire thing. And you as participants want to be able to connect as quickly as possible to the largest amounts of virtue as you can. And we know that the great, great masters tell us that the more sentient beings we do virtue in relation to, the more that virtue has power, the more that virtue will, be something solid, that when it's uncontaminated by the wisdom realizing emptiness will be a very, very firm cause and condition for our, final evolution. So we recognize that this is why we're doing this right in the beginning, is because we're doing something of such great virtue. We should try to multiply that virtue as quickly as possible, as greatly as possible, so that there's as much power as we can get. So let's say the mantra for power, multiplying virtue. Now we'll say it 3 times, and imagine that you and all sentient beings are saying this mantra for multiplying virtue. And again, the reason that we go through these exercises is so that you can bring them into your own meditation, so you can bring them into your practice. So many times I've heard people say, well, but we're not really given instructions on exactly what to do when we sit down on the cushion. Yes, we were. All of the Lamrim teachings are instructions for practice, but sometimes, when people like myself and others have done it for more years, you see kind of tips and techniques that are helpful. And if they're helpful, please utilize them. If they're not helpful, then, there's a lot of tips and techniques out there. So just again, trying to connect with as many beings as possible. Now you've connected all sentient beings here. Now we imagine that we all together are reciting this mantra of multiplying virtue. Om Sambara Sambara Bemanasara Mahazo Om, Om Mara Mara Bemanagara Mahazo Om, Om Sambara Sambara Bemanasara Mahazo Om, Om Mara Mara Bemanagara Mahazo Om, Om Sambara Sambara Bemanasara Mahazo Om, Om Mara Mara Bemanagara Mahazo Om. So now we've got ourselves into the best possible condition for accumulating virtue. So now let's imagine that we're kind of doing the 6 preparations together. We find the 6 preparations in the beginning of the Lamrim, and I encourage you all to look at those 6 preparations. So we imagine that we and all sentient beings, we're imagining it, but you would do this in your own room with your altar and so forth. And you're imagining that you're with all sentient beings doing this, connecting to them, knowing that you will need to do this in order to become a Buddha. So you're imagining that you and all sentient beings are completing the first preparation of cleaning the room, because you're going to be inviting holy beings, and then assembling, objects of enlightenment, stupas, Buddhas, Dharma books, assembling objects of enlightenment. And then that's your first preparation. Imagine that you're doing that with all sentient beings. The second preparation is that you imagine you're, in this case, but in your own practice, you would be physically doing this, but there are, offerings you do with your hands and offerings you can do imagined with your mind. So in this case, the second preparation is to obtain offerings honestly, without deceit, and then make them to the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So you have your altar, you've cleaned the room first, and then you've invited the beings, you've put the holy objects and beings on your altar. Now you've made offerings to all of these beings. And when you make these offerings, you can do the offering mantra we find in the Chenrezig prayer book. Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sarvapramana Tathagata Yarati Samisamadaya Taita Benza Benza Ma Teja Benza Ma Vida Benza Ma Bodhicitta Benza Ma Bodhi Mandapa Sakamanda Benza Savakama Avarana Vishudana Benza Soha. So that's the mantra for making offerings. And it's said that if you do that 7 times, a rain of offerings falls onto the entire merit field. So now you're not only imagining your altar, you're imagining the entire universe, like we're going to read in the 7-limb prayer. All the atoms are full of Buddhas, holy objects, holy beings. So you're imagining that You are, making these offerings. You're doing this in your mind, or you're physically doing them in your shrine room, and you're making offerings to this immeasurable amounts of beings. Because now your virtue is not only related to all sentient beings and the field of bodhicitta, and so the other sentient beings, but now it's in relation to all of the holy beings, the enlightened beings. So this merit, if you can imagine the merit field so expansive and so large, you're getting it's such a powerful basis. When we look at gaining karma, the basis is so powerful when we think of a Buddha. So when we think of immeasurable Buddhas, that basis is just immeasurably powerful. So we're imagining all of these kind of enlightened beings as we're setting up the merit field, as we're setting up our altar. But we haven't taken that step yet where we've invited in our meditation the entire merit field, because we now have to make sure that our mind's really in a good condition to do so that we can get the most benefit out of it. It's not only about how many things we can imagine, it's about how pure and kind of wonderful our mind and motivation is into relation to these things. Now we kind of take a moment, and it's our third step where we kind of check. We get into the 7-point Vairakana posture, as we do usually before class. And it says that this is a good physical support to get our minds into the clearest place possible. Our mind riding on the subtle whim, our channels, our chakras, our winds, our blood's flowing exactly the way that it should. So it allows our mind to have the most potential for clarity when we're in this physical posture. So we get into this physical posture after we've done these first two preparations, and we see, is our mind clear? And as I said before, if we're just a kind of like a conceptual mess at that point, we have to apply antidotes. If we're a sleepy mess at that point, we have to apply antidotes. And we talked about some of those antidotes in previous teachings, so I won't go on. So assuming now your mind is clear, like clear for me, clear for you, not clear for the Buddha. We're trying to become like that. So, not having grandiose expectations, those things become obstacles, clear for us. And now we imagine that we invite the entire merit field. So this is how you would do this practice. So now we imagine that we invite the entire merit field here. We imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is in the space in front of us. We just take a moment to think about how fortunate we are to have connected with these teachings that can show us how to remove our afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. And only because Buddha Shakyamuni was so kind to be able to come here and share these teachings with us. Buddha Shakyamuni would be so pleased that we're engaging in this practice today, engaging in exactly what he intended for us. Now imagining that Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing the entire merit field, and that containment can't contain itself any longer because of the bliss that the Buddha and the entire merit field is experiencing from seeing us engaging in this practice. And imagine now that all of the enlightened beings are in the space in front of you. And again, you have all sentient beings surrounding you. And imagine that all sentient beings now are having, this experience of gazing into the eyes of the merit field, just like you. Imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is there. Imagine that Khensur Geshe Wangdak and His Holiness the Dalai Lama are there. Khensur Geshe Wangdak, this is his stupa that we just filled a few days ago. We're so fortunate to be able to engage in that holy, holy practice. And today's ceremony will be dedicated to that, and prayers that Rinpoche loves so much, prayers that we all did together. Imagine Rinpoche just gazing into our eyes with that chuckle that he always had, because he knew, wow, they're here. I'm so happy. They're doing the best that they can. And he was always just so amused at the illusion-like appearance of everything. Imagining Khensur Geshe Wangdak in the space in front of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Khensur Lobsang Gyatso, imagining Dema Locha Rinpoche, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu, Geshe Malatenzin Ladrin, Umzula Geshe Aga, Jeffrey Hopkins, Chado Rinpoche, Ani Tupten Chodron, Any beings, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, any beings that you consider holy, that have touched your lives, that you consider enlightened, imagine them right there in the space in front of you, as if you could just reach out and touch the cloth that they're wearing, as if you could reach out and just hold Rinpoche's hand, as if he's right there. Because whenever we call the merit field, they come. Whenever we call on enlightened beings, they come. They're here with us. We just don't have the karma to be able to really see and experience it in a full way. But as we evolve more and more and more, we'll get glimpses of this reality that they come to us. Now imagine the holy beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basu Bandhu and Dharma Kirti and Dignaga and Vimukta Sena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and Lama Salimpa and Atisha, imagining those holy beings of the extensive deeds lineage, grounds, paths, logic, reasoning, the Vinaya, Abhisama Alamkara. We're so connected. We're so fortunate. Rinpoche taught the 7-point cause and effect so many times for achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And it's right from that lineage. Now imagine all the holy beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shantideva, and imagining Baba Vega, Chandrashita, Kamala Shila, all of these holy beings, the profound view lineage, specifically those holders of the Madhyamaka Prasangika view, Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and so forth. We're so fortunate that Chandrakirti came to our world, and Lama Tsongkhapa commented on the Madhyamika avatar so that we can really understand Nagarjuna's intent. We're so fortunate these beings have come to our world. Now imagine the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara and Saraha and Matripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, imagining all of these holy beings are here. Imagining now Drone Tompa Atisha is passing the Lamrim lineage down to Drone Tompa, that holy lay Lama, imagining all of the beings of the old Kadampa lineages, those 3 lineages, imagining the beings of the Nyingma Padmasambhava, beings such as Padmasambhava, Sakya Satyakonganimpo, Sakya Pandita, Kaju the Karmapas, the Galupa, imagining Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtubje, Josepje, Pension Sonamdrapa, Jayan Sheba, Basu Chuji Jetson, Gonchu Jimmy Wambo, Janja Rupi Dorje, Jetsumba, considering all of these holy beings. We're so fortunate, the 7th Dalai Lama, to be connected to them. All the beings of the highest Yoga Tantra, Performance Tantra, Action Tantra, all of the 35 Buddhas. Imagining all of the protector deities of the small, medium, and great scope. We see Palden Lama right there, who Rinpoche said is our protector deity. Not imagining this like a fairy tale, just recognizing that our lives are really like a fairy tale, and sooner or later we'll start seeing what's real. We're so fortunate to have these instructions that are so clear. And imagine all sentient beings are around you experiencing this merit field, experiencing the bliss, the warmth of the love and compassion that these beings have when they look into your eyes. If you've ever looked into the eyes of a bodhisattva and they look back at you, you can feel like you're the only one in the world. You can feel like you mean so much and you've never meant so much to someone in your life. And sometimes you've only met them once. This is the kind of being that we want to become. And the more and more we think about the excellent qualities beings like this have, the more and more we connect with sentient beings, the more and more we're acting, we're emulating the ways of these bodhisattvas, and our minds are starting to kind of try to at least work like a bodhisattva's mind, so it eventually will be a bodhisattva's mind. So we're so fortunate to have this merit field. We're so fortunate to have this bodhicitta field, to be able to connect with all of the beings that will allow us to experience bliss on both sides, the sentient beings and the enlightened beings. We need to recognize them as equally important. When we start to think of an enemy, we recognize that that kind of person is a holy object if we really analyze it, just like our teacher. Teaching us patience, teaching us about dependent origination, teaching us about karma and its results. So now we've imagined the merit field. So this is step number 4. And now number 5, we make a 7-limb prayer. Step number 5 in the 6 preparations This is one of Rinpoche's favorite prayers, the King of Aspirations. I began the teaching with that quote from the King of Aspirations prayers, the Sanche Molam. And I'd like to just read the 7-limb prayer section of this. And just again, imagining that all of the holy beings are in the space in front of you, and that you're making this 7-limb prayer with all sentient beings with you. And just when you're reading these words, don't just read them as words. Think about the meaning. Think about the enormity of the virtue that's created because of the way that this is presented. We're so fortunate. And that the entire Sanche Mola is inside this stupa right here. There are so many prayers along with Rinpoche's holy bones, a piece of Rinpoche's holy skull inside this stupa right here. So many prayers, all the mantras, all the prayers, just full of so many things, and all the holy objects you all sent, just full, just glowing. Feels like it weighs, it looks to me right here like it weighs 1,000,000 pounds. Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you so much. In the language of India, Arya, Bhadra, Charya, Prana, Dana, Raja. In the language of Tibet, Papa, Zambo, Jibi, Mulan, Jijel, Bo. In English language, the King of Aspiration prayers, Samanta Bhadra's aspiration to good actions. Okay. I'm going to just read it off the screen. Homage to Manjushri, the youthful. Prostration to all the Buddhas, the lions of the human race, in all directions of the universe, through past and present and future. To every single one of you, I bow in homage. Devotion fills my body, speech, and mind. Through the power of this prayer, aspiring to good action, all the virtuous ones appear, vivid here before my mind. And I multiply my body as many times as atoms in the universe, each one bowing in prostration to all the Buddhas. In every atom preside as many Buddhas as there are atoms, and around them all their bodhisattva heirs. And so I imagine them filling completely the entire space of reality, saluting them with an endless ocean of praise. With this sounds of an ocean of different melodies, I sing the Buddha's noble qualities and praise all those who have gone to perfect bliss. Now we make offerings. To every Buddha, I make offerings of the loveliest flowers, of beautiful garlands of music, perfumed ointments, and the best parasols, the brightest lamps, and the finest incense. To every Buddha, I make offerings, exquisite garments and fragrant scents, powdered incense heaped as high as Mount Meru, ranged in perfect symmetry, then the vast and unsurpassable offerings, inspired by my devotion to all the Buddhas, moved by the power of my faith and good actions, I prostrate and offer to all the victorious ones. Now confession, whatever negative acts I have committed while driven by desire, hatred, and ignorance, with my body, my speech, and also with my mind, before you, I confess and purify each and every one. And this is the part where we would then, as a supplement for our own personal practice, apply the 4 opponent powers. Rejoicing with a heart full of delight, I rejoice at the merits of all the merits of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, and the Arhats beyond training, and every living being throughout the entire universe, imploring the Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma. You are like beacons of light shining through the worlds, who pass through the stages of enlightenment to attain Buddhahood, freedom from all attachment. I exhort you, all you protectors, turn the unsurpassable wheel of Dharma, requesting the Buddhas not to enter nirvana. Joining my palms together, I pray to you who intend to pass into nirvana, remain for eons, as many as the atoms in this world, and bring well-being and happiness to all living beings. Dedication. What little virtue I have gathered through my homage, through offering, confession, and rejoicing, through the exhortation and prayer of all of it, I dedicate to the enlightenment of all beings. So now we will recite the Heart Sutra. And the Heart Sutra is so important. Rinpoche spent so much time on this text and on the meaning of this text. And just one thing that I'd really like to share with you when we look at the Heart Sutra, and maybe just something that you can take with you this week and use for your analysis, because we won't be reading from Meditation on Emptiness by Jeffrey Hopkins today. But when we look at the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, I'd just like you to start to think about the power of labels. Rinpoche talked about this so much, how we are just merely labeling things, merely labeling basis of designation. But we feel that that basis of designation is somehow wrapped up in the label, somehow is like concealed in its fullest extent by that label. We feel that that label somehow permeates the entire object in some way. We feel like that basis of designation definitely has the ness-ness of the label. We feel like from its own side that there's some objective existence, some objective reality, intrinsic, inherent existence that the object has that makes it so that I call it this or that. So we feel so strongly, innately, that everything around us has this objective existence. We feel this. But then when we start to use a name around these things, they become more and more solid in our mind. And when we start to see this power of the label of designation, and we take, for instance, could you do me a favor? Could you go get me a banana, please? I know this is strange. So you take an idea of label, and you see how powerful that label is once you start to have what's called a sound generality. You're told about what something is. So then you start to make all of these details around what something is in your mind just from merely hearing about it. You know, maybe a Mercedes or something, Benz, you know, is something that's like this really good car or something, you know, you've heard all about this. So now in your mind, you haven't even seen this thing. And this label to you means this concrete thing that's so incredible. This is what this thing means to you before you've even seen the Mercedes-Benz. Now you see the Mercedes-Benz and you have, I need a full banana. I need a full banana. You're ruining my prop. Now you see a Mercedes-Benz and you have this idea now. You've connected the meaning of what you've heard about to this visual, like maybe it's an emblem, probably, you know, like unless you have a favorite Mercedes-Benz, then that's what comes up in your mind, you know, the one that you saw first. And then every other Mercedes-Benz, guess what, guys? You're just comparing quickly in your mind to the first one you saw and going, oh, okay, that's a Mercedes-Benz over there. And it has all these qualities. And you don't even need to spend any time with it because you already have this frame of reference you've built up in your mind that this label has this power. And the more and more you think about it, think about now, if you're someone who's really like obsessed with a Mercedes-Benz, pick your fancy, put your thing in that category. If you're somebody who's really obsessed with like a Mercedes-Benz, then now just the mere name brings about this attachment, this craving, this wanting to see a picture of it. You go on the internet to look at the stats of it. And it's merely from this label that you think the object inherently possesses ness of. So we take this banana. I'm going to show you your power of label just a little bit. So what's this? Everyone, this is a banana. You're going to say it's a banana. No, it's killa. It's killa. And then you say killa. What do you mean it's killa? That sounds funny in my ear. That's not a killa, it's a banana. But then when I tell you killa is Tibetan for banana, you go, oh, they mean banana. Oh, they mean banana. So you're almost like it's silly, a foreign language. This is your label. They're saying banana. You're saying banana, but you think your label is the real banana. So now let's look at this. Let's do a little of Rinpoche's talk. So is the banana, okay, I have this idea of banana. Okay, think of a banana. You've got the banana in your mind. Okay, so you have this idea of an objectively existent banana in your mind that's just banana. So where's the banana? Is this the banana? Is this the banana? Is this banana? Okay. What do I have in my hand? A banana. I thought you needed, wait a minute. A banana has this yellow thing on the outside of it. Okay, all right. So this is a banana. Okay, is this a banana? Or is it a piece of a banana? I don't know. Is this a banana? If I say to you, I have some banana for you and I give you this, you're going to agree that I gave you banana. So when you start to find what this label that brings all of this stuff up to you, you find out that you've got some ideas around what a banana is. And when you start to figure out where it is and what it is, it starts to become difficult. But there's a banana here. Why? I'm eating it. If it was an illusion, I couldn't fill my stomach. So because I'm eating it, it's not an illusion. It's like an illusion, the way that appears to me to be objectively existent, attached to that label. And you say, well, banana. Well, what is a banana? A banana is really nutritious food. If I gave Rinpoche too many bananas, he'd go to the hospital because potassium was bad for him. Is this nutritional food or poison? Which is it? Is this good food or is this poison? Depends on the subject deciding it. For Rinpoche, this is poison. For you, who may need like a burst in energy and potassium, this is medicine. This label has so many things affixed to it that we think the object is what we say in our minds it is. And then that allows us to have something to play with, to have inappropriate attention and exaggeration. We don't need to be standing next to the Mercedes. We just have the name. We really love bananas. We don't need to stand. We don't need to have this in our hand. If you are obsessed with bananas, I just say banana and you go, man, I'd really love a banana. Those things are so nutritious. Or I say banana and you're like, get those things away. If I eat a banana, I'm going to end up in the hospital. So what's the banana? The banana is merely whatever it is subjectively designated by a thought. It's a kela in Tibet. That's fine. You can call the moon a rabbit possessor, or the man or the cheese or whatever. We'd say things as kids. In Tibet, they say it's a rabbit possessor, you know? And for them, that's fine. We say rabbit possessor, we're looking for a cage. But to them, moon hops into their mind. Think about these labels and figure out if that label that you're so attached to and has all this meaning to you that you can then have exaggeration from really deserves that attention. And if the label doesn't deserve that attention, then what are we talking about? What are we pointing at when we say that thing right there objectively exists? Because we're never saying that thing right there. I mean, unless we've never, you know, and then we're inquisitive and we're putting together information to later have in our chart to say, chair. I'm looking at a chair. If I didn't know what a chair was. Now I'm putting parts together. I see, oh, you could sit in that. And then later someone says that's a chair. And I've already got details about it before I even know the name of it. You know, we were debating like before you see a tree. Anyway, doesn't matter. So power of label just shows you that if subjectively this can be poison and that this can be medicine and that this is a banana when I have the peel on it, and you're totally cool with it being a banana without the peel, and you're fine with it when I hand it to you and say I have a banana for you and I give you a piece, you would agree, you wouldn't fight it really. But it starts to fall apart as I start to take it apart and start to eat it and start to say, is the banana its shape? Is it its color? Is it its parts? Is it something separate from its parts? It can't be. So if the banana can't be something separate from its parts, What are you eating? If there's no parts there, there's no parts, you have nothing to eat. So it can't be separate from its parts. Apply that to the self of person. That's the whole point. Okay. Prop, can you grab my prop? And I have a slimy banana. Good. It's like multiple parts. Do it. Okay. Wow. That was pretty flawless. So the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge is challenging our appearances over and over again. You think there's this? Well, there's no inherently existent this. You think there's this? There's no objectively existent that. There's no objectively existent this. If it can't be found as inherently one or separate from its parts, then it's not inherently existent. And we apply this to hundreds and hundreds of phenomena and thousands and billions and gajillions of phenomena, and we find out that all phenomena are not inherently existent. And this is the point the Buddha is making at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. Cheers. Thank you so much, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, for giving us a chance out of this mess. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus I have heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha monks and a great gathering of the Sangha Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. 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 Path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. Bodhisoha, the five Mahayana paths. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Gala jube ne jodamba ne ngaje de ngai de jen jeba lama yibjin zi ne zon gandro zo la jatzelo agasamara jandara samara be agasamara jandara samara agasamara jandara Aga samara jajana razamara ya be de adon gade gade baragate barazangate bodizo Papa Concha Sanji Kayedim Biduji, Lobodoji, Mebodoji, Shewadoji, Dragi Baji Medubija Naji Dingo so getting Jaja Jawadan, Medun Bejan Dewadan, Dumbajan Jim Bonzun Joji, Tashi de Jan Denda de Lejo. Make a mandala offering again. Please remember, all sentient beings here, your guests, just keep your practice. Stay calm and keep being mindful, not to forget that you're doing this to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And in order to become a Buddha, you have to connect with all sentient beings. So just imagine now you're offering this perfect universe to all the enlightened beings. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanye jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jazu ji dagi jije jibe zananji rala benje zanye drubar jo zanye jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jazu ji dagi jije jibe zananji rala benje zanye drubar jo Sanye jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jazuji dagi jishe ji bezonanji drala benje zanye drubarjo. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you are attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience and listening over this last year and a half. Here we have Rinpoche's stupa. There's a stupa in Drepung, and other stupas are being made, but this is Buddha's center stupa that we filled. And we put so many prayers, including the Heart Sutra, the Essence of Dependent Origination, Mantra Sutra, so many, Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, Tara mantras that some of you provided. We're so fortunate. Other beautiful pictures of Buddhas you provided, and other sentimental things you provided, and Nejung Shani and Mani Rilbos from His Holiness, and the prayer for the flourishing of Tsongkhapa's teachings, and just some of the things that are in there. There's so many more that I'm saying. All the mantras of the deities, the prayer for the supplication to Khensur Geshe Wangdak, and then Rinpoche's actual bones. Some of them are in this stupa, and then in a series of small stupas that we're having made slowly. We're buying them and then filling them slowly. So just be patient if you are Rinpoche's root student or a student of Rinpoche's. There will be something coming your way. Hopefully, if it takes a long time to fill the little stupas that I'll show you, because there's 12 prayers in each of the little stupas alone that have to each be rolled and put in. If we want to do massive amounts, it's hundreds and hundreds of printing and rolling. So just be patient with this process. But I aspire, and Lori aspires, to be able to help as many of Rinpoche's students connect to him in this way. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a moment. But this is a very holy relic. So today, what are we doing? I am reading from a sutra. And the reason I'm doing this is it incorporates, it's from the Exalted Sublime Golden Light Sutra, the glorious sutra called the Golden Light. It's also called, and it's the story that Rinpoche told many times, but never read the whole sutra. But he's told this story so many times about the tiger, the Bodhisattva Shakyamuni in his previous life, coming upon a starving tiger and 5 cubs and offering, his body, giving the generosity of his body to this starving tiger and cubs. And this is one of the things that connected those 5 cubs were Buddha's first 5 students. I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to read the sutra, and I may or may not stop. But today we won't be doing Lam Rim Chemo. We're just going to read this, And I think that you'll see exactly why as I go through it. And it's quite long. And just sit back, relax. It's reading day. And please enjoy this sutra and see, and please meditate on, death and impermanence, and the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Meditate on this. So this is called the Tigress. It's an excerpt. It's the story of the Tigress. And it's basically Buddha. I'm not going to give it away. You can understand things that are very simple, which this is for the most part. And just listen. The Tigress. Furthermore, O noble goddess, a bodhisattva gives away even their body and life to help others. How is it so? Accompanied by 1,000 bhikshus, the Tathagata, projecting bright rays of hundreds of pure and vast virtues to heaven and earth, possessing power to eclipse challengers with unobstructed wisdom, sight, and power, was passing through the region of the Panchalas when they came to a certain forest. There he saw an area lush with dark green, soft grass, embellished with assorted fragrant meadow flowers. Seeing this, the Tathagata said to the Venerable Ananda, that's Buddha Shakyamuni's attendant. We see sometimes 80,000 bundles of teaching, sometimes 84,000. Some people don't accept the 4,000 teachings of the 84,000 because Ananda wasn't there. Ananda became the attendant of Buddha Shakyamuni. And Ananda said the only thing, I have a stipulation, he had some stipulations, but the main stipulation was that he would be at every teaching. So some say it's not until Ananda gets there that we can be sure. So here, this is Ananda, okay? This site is, so seeing this, the Tathagata said to Venerable Ananda, this site is beautiful. So just think about this. Think about, I mean, I know how I took care of Rinpoche. I know how my guru devotion is. This is Ananda. This is Shakyamuni's attendant that we're talking about here. This site is beautiful, Ananda. It has the mark of being the place of a Dharma teaching. Lay a seat for the Tathagata. As instructed by the Tathagata, a seat was set up. Having set up the seat, Ananda said to Tathagata, by the way, this is translated by Alexander Berzin. I'm sorry I didn't mention this. This is in Berzin Archives. If you're on a computer and can get to it, it's the Tigress, Berzin Archives. Sorry I didn't say that before. As instructed by the Tathagata, a seat was set up. Having set it up the seat, Ananda said to the Tathagata, this seat is laid, O transcendent Lord, chief and supreme among bipeds, freeing beings from bondage. You bestow supreme benefit upon humans. Be seated, and may the nectar of sublime discourse for the benefit of humans kindly be given. Then the Tathagata sat on this seat and addressed the bhikshus in this way. Would you like to see the remains of a bodhisattva who performed tasks that are difficult to perform? When addressed in this way, those bhikshus replied to the Tathagata, O sublime sage, the time is right for us to see the remains of the one, the best of supreme beings, in whom rested the inconceivable virtues of immense patience, fortitude, and wisdom, delight and calm humility in the mind of recollection. Tell us well. Then the Tathagata struck the surface of the earth with his hand, whose palm was soft as the newly bloomed lotus and marked with 1,000-spoked wheels. As soon as he struck it, the earth shook in 60 ways, and then arose a stupa made of silver, gold, and jewels. Then the Tathagata said to Venerable Ananda, Ananda, open the stupa. Heeding these instructions, the Venerable Ananda opened the stupa. Inside, he saw an urn covered with gold and inlaid with jewels and pearls. Having seen this, he said to the Tathagata, O transcendent Lord, this is an urn made of gold. The Tathagata said, open these 7 urns. Accordingly, he opened them. He saw relics with colors were like snow and white lily. Seeing this, the Venerable Ananda said to the Tathagata, O transcendent Lord, there are relics. Then the Tathagata said, Ananda, bring here the relics of the great being. Then the Venerable Ananda took those relics and brought them to the Tathagata, taking the relics to the 1,000 bhikshus and holding them in his hand, and the Tathagata addressed them in this way. Here, bring the screen up. In the center, you'll see Rinpoche's remains, white and beautiful bones. So many. Look how white, just from here. Look at the center of this. Look at that. These are the small stupas, by the way. We're working on it, everyone. We're working on it. Here are the bones of one endowed with excellent virtue and supreme intellect, humility, meditation, delight through patience, and sublime fame, one who continually strove for the wisdom of his enlightenment, intelligent and possessing steadfast joyous perseverance. He always delighted in giving. Then the Tathagata said this to the 1,000 bhikshus. O bhikshus, offer homage to the Bodhisattva's relics fully charged with ethics and virtue, which are a field of merit and extremely rare to see. Then their hearts filled with aspiration. Those bhikshus paid homage to the relics with hands folded in reverence. Again, I'll show you the relics. When we were doing this process, something magical happened in the room. And I'm sorry, Lori, I'm sharing this, but Lori had a piece of Rinpoche's bone and he said, was Rinpoche parts separate from the parts? It was really, we have to understand that this is empty of inherent existence. Rinpoche was empty of inherent existence. Yet, because of dependent origination, this is a holy object. Then the Tathagata said to this 1,000 bhikshus, O bhikshus, offer homage to the Bodhisattva's relics, fully charged with ethics and virtue, which are a field of merit and extremely rare to see. Then their hearts filled with aspirations, those bhikshus paid homage to the relics with folded hands, with hands folded in reverence. Then with the hands folded, the Venerable Ananda addressed the Tathagata in this way. The Tathagata transcendent victor has risen above all the world and is venerated by all beings. How is it that the Tathagata venerates these remains? Then the Tathagata replied in this way to the Venerable Ananda. Ananda, it is because of these relics that I quickly awoke to peerless and supreme enlightenment. Ananda, formerly in a time long past, there was a king called Maharatha who possessed chariots, wielded great power, and defeated opponents through unobstructed might and strength. He had 3 sons who were like sons of the gods, Mahapranada, Mahadeva, and Mahasattva. One day, the king went to a park for sport. Drawn by the enchanting qualities of the park and wishing to find flowers, the princes ran about and entered the great Svasha Vana Goma forest. As the princes ran about, their attendants were dismissed and went on their way. The princes entered the thick 12 forests as of that fully protected forest reserve. Then Mahapranada spoke to his brothers. My heart is overwhelmed by fear. We might be killed by wild beasts. Stay close. Mahadeva said, as for me, I have no fear, but I'm anxious. I might be separated from my loved ones. Mahasattva said, here in the forest, solitude acclaimed by seers, I am not anxious, nor have I fear. This heart of mine is greatly overjoyed in hope of finding opportunity for vast and great benefit. So we see if there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. Then, as the princes strolled through the Vadasha Vana Guma forest, they came upon a tigress who had given birth the previous week, surrounded by her offspring, hungry and thirsty, famished, her body extremely feeble. Seeing her, Mahapranada said, alas, it would be 6 or 7 days since this wretch gave birth. She has not found food. Either she will die of starvation or devour her own cubs. To this, Mahasattva said, what is the food of this wretch? Mahapranada said, here they say fresh meat and warm blood is food suitable for tigers, bears, hyenas, and lions. Mahadeva said, this wretch, her body, tortured by hunger and thirst, has little life left. She's extremely feeble and cannot look for food. Who would sacrifice their life to save hers? Mahapranada said, oh, good fellows, giving one's body is a daunting task. Mahasattva said, for people like us, feeble-minded and greatly attached to the body, such an act is difficult indeed. However, great beings embark on giving their bodies completely and dauntlessly strive for others' welfare. Moreover, born of affectionate love and compassion, Arya beings who consider their bodies as just obtained in heaven or on this earth, their joyous minds most agreeable to saving others' lives, remaining steadfast, would have 100-fold compassion in this case. Feeling very sad, the young prince looked at the tigress for a length of time without blinking, then went on his way. Then Mahasattva had this thought: now the time has come for me to give this body away. Why? Although I have long guarded this putrid body, subject to death and decay, providing it with food and drink, clothing, vehicles, luxurious beds, ultimately is doomed to crumble and end in woe. This body has no purpose save to abandon its unknown nature. Furthermore, since it's wholly impure, it will not endure. Now I should use it for a noble end. Thus it will be for me like a boat crossing the ocean of death and rebirth. Moreover, giving this body possessed of hundreds of abscesses like existences, filled with feces and urine, without core like foam, bearing hundreds of worms, laying waste to what has been done, I shall attain the Dharmakaya's timeless state, free of the afflicted aggregates, sorrowless, and endowed with samadhi, replete with hundreds of stainless virtues, his heart brimming with supreme compassion and resolve. He asked his brothers to leave him. You can go off. I am returning to the Svadasha Vana Goma for a personal thing. Then Prince Mahasattva left that part of the forest and returned to where the tigress was. He hung his clothes on a forest creeper and prayed. Rinpoche used to tell this story. Took off his clothes, made a prayer to benefit transmigrating beings. May I attain the peace of peerless enlightenment. My mind compassionate and steadfast. I give this body, which others find hard to give up. May I achieve the flawless, priceless enlightenment the bodhisattvas so keenly seek. I shall free beings in the triple worlds from the intense fear of the ocean of existence. Then the Mahasattva lay in front of the tigress, but the tigress did nothing to the compassionate bodhisattva. Rinpoche told this so often. The bodhisattva thought, alas, she's too weak and incapable. He rose up in search of a sharp weapon and did not find one. Taking hold of a strong branch of a bamboo stick, 100 years old, he cut his throat and fell down before the tigress. When the bodhisattva fell down, and sometimes they say shaved his skin off, piece by piece, and fed it to the tigress. When the bodhisattva fell down, the earth shook in 6 ways like a boat pounded by winds amidst the sea. The sun, as if it was caught by Rahu, did not shine with its rays. Flowers mingled with divine perfumes and powders fell. Then a certain goddess, her mind overwhelmed with astonishment, praised this bodhisattva. O noble-minded one, holding all beings in your compassion here as you joyfully give your body, hero among beings, before long and without trouble you will find pristine peace, that tranquil supreme state devoid of birth and death's pain. Then licking the blood-stained body of the bodhisattva, the tigress reduced his body to bones without flesh and blood. Feeling the earthquake, Maha Pranada said to Mahadeva, the way the earth with its seas greatly shook as far as the oceans in all 10 directions, the way the sun lost its rays and rain of flowers has fallen, my mind is troubled. My brother has now given his body. Mahadeva said, considering the words of compassion he spoke and the way he keenly observed the tigress, tortured by suffering and weak, nearly eating her cubs, I too am troubled. Then, overcome by extreme grief, their eyes filling with tears, the 2 young princes went back along the path to where the tigress was. They saw his clothes hanging on the bamboo shoots, his bloody bones scattered about, his hair spread in every direction. Upon seeing this, they fainted and fell down upon the remains. Reviving after some time, they raised their arms and issued a wretched cry. Alas, our beloved brother, the king and our mother too were most devoted to their son. Our mother will surely ask, where did you leave the third one of you? He whose eyes are long as the lotus petals. Alas, for the 2 of us in this part of the forest land, living is not as good as meeting death. Having lost Mahasattva, how will our parents care for us? Then, lamenting in many ways, the 2 princes went on their way. Their servants, running in all directions in search of the princes, saw them and asked, princes, what happened? What happened? At that moment, the queen was lying in her bed. She dreamed a dream showing the separation from a loved one. Her 2 breasts were cut off and her teeth were wrenched out. Finding 3 young frightened doves, one was snatched by a hawk. Terrified by the earthquake, the queen awoke suddenly and thought, why did this sustainer of beings, clothed in oceans, so violently shake? The sun was robbed of its rays, pointing to the sorrow in my heart. In my dream, my body was weak, my eyes quivered, my breasts were cut off. I wonder if my son's gone to the forest to play sport or well. As the queen sustained these thoughts, a maidservant entered. Distressed, she spoke to the queen. "Oh, mother, the prince's attendants search for the prince. It is heard that your beloved son has perished." When she heard these words with trembling heart and eyes filled with tears, the queen approached the king. "Lord, I have heard that my darling son has perished." The king too was distraught. With trembling heart, he said, "I have lost my beloved son." To give solace to the king said, "Good queen, do not grieve. I will immediately search for our prince. So they set off, gathering people crowding about. Then the king saw the two princes approaching from afar. Upon seeing them, the king cried, "The princes are coming, but not all three. Alas, it's agony to see oneself bereaved of a son. The joy of gaining a son for a man does not equal the pain of losing a son for another. Are those men not happy who have no sons in the world? Or those who have met death with their children still living?" Overcome with grief, the queen, like a she-camel struck in the vital part, issued a most wretched cry. "If my three sons with their assembly of servants entered the forest clearing overgrown with blossoms, my youngest darling son has not returned. Where is the last son, who is like my heart?" When the two princes came near, the king asked, "Where is the youngest of you?" Grief-stricken, their eyes filled with tears, their mouths dry, they said nothing. The queen asked, "Where is my youngest son? My heart is about to burst. My body is in unbearable pain. My mind is failing. Speak at once." Then the two sons told about what had occurred. Upon hearing it, the queen and king became senseless. When they regained their sanity, they wept and pitifully and went to that place. Seeing the bones without flesh, blood, or muscle, and the hair scattered about, the king and queen fell to the ground like trees blown by the wind. The priests and the ministers witnessed these events, then refreshed and revived the bodies of the king and queen with a salve of Malaya sandal. Upon reviving, the king arose and cried this lamentation: "Alas, beloved son, affectionate and jovial, why have you gone so quickly to death's domain? Why has death not come to me instead? Never have I felt suffering greater than this." Remember Rinpoche's teaching, all the Lamrim teaching. Death will come. Nothing can stop it. We don't know when we're going to die, and nothing can help us but Dharma. And if we aren't familiar with death, we'll faint. You see, these people faint when they see bones. "Alas, beloved son, affectionate and jovial, why have you gone so quickly to death's domain?" We don't know when it's going to happen. That's why. Because you have contaminated karma, afflictions, and seeds. "Why has death not come to me instead? Never have I felt suffering greater than this." With bedraggled hair beating her chest, the queen too wailed pitifully. She writhed on the ground as does a fish thrown into dry land, a female buffalo deprived of her young, a she-camel whose offspring has perished. "Alas, who has crushed and scattered on the ground my darling son, this lotus most loving? Which enemy of mine on this earth today has slain my son of charming eyes and moon-like face? Alas, when seeing the best of sons slain upon the ground, why does this body not collapse? This heart of mine is clearly made of iron. It does not crack in the face of tragic pain. Today in my dream, my breasts were cut off with a sword, my teeth were wrenched from my mouth, and today my darling son is suddenly no more. Just as one of the three doves I held was snatched by a hawk, today, surrounded by three sons, death has seized one. Alas, the fruit of my evil dream has come to pass." Then the king and queen lamented in many ways, surrounded by a crowd. They bared themselves of ornaments, paid homage, barred themselves of ornaments, paid homage to the remains of their son, and laid his remains in this place. Now, Ananda, if you think the young prince called Mahasattva at that time, at that moment, was another, do not see it like that. Why, at that time, at that moment, I was the young prince called Mahasattva. "Ananda, even before I was wholly free of ignorance, hatred, and desire, I saved beings from the suffering of the hells. This is why we're trying to connect so that we can become Buddha." He says right here, even before I could do it, even before I could do it for everyone, I did what I could. Why? At that time, at that moment, I was the young prince called Mahasattva. "Ananda, even before I was wholly free of ignorance, hatred, and desire, I saved beings from the suffering of the hells." Thinking of how Buddha achieved bodhicitta in hell in previous life, when he became a bodhisattva in hell, because he wanted to help carry the cart, because he saw that one of the companions was struggling. He said, "I'll do that," because he wanted to take the suffering of that being he was in hell with. Big teaching in this. "I save beings from the suffering of the hot hells. Now that I am free of all weakness and arrived in enlightened perfection." How much free of all weakness? A completely reliable guide. No afflictive obstructions, no obstructions to omniscience. The only being who can directly cognize conventional and ultimate truth simultaneously, and can at the same time simultaneously help all sentient beings in the way that they need to be helped so that they can be led to the truth of suchness. Now that I am free of all weakness and arrived at enlightenment's perfection, how much more would I wish to free all beings? In this way, for the sake of just one being, I have happily remained in the hell for eons. I have freed beings completely from the cycle of birth. With the most excellent of hearts, I have helped all beings and performed numerous different daunting tasks. When the Tathagata at that time pronounced these verses, while seeking supreme enlightenment, I gave my body for many eons. Just as I became king or prince, so I completely gave my body. Just like becoming this, I gave away that. Just as easily as I became a prince, I just as easily gave away a body. We see these two extremes of ease. For a Buddha, for a Bodhisattva, then the Tathagata at the time, as I recall my past rebirths, once there was a king called Maharata, who had a greatly generous son called Mahasattva the Sublime. And Mahasattva had two brothers, Mahapranada and Mahadeva, by name. These brothers ventured into a thick forest and saw where a tigress was tortured by hunger. Agonizing was Mahasattva's compassion for this being. So famished is this tigress with hunger and thirst, she will surely eat her own cubs. Thus I shall offer her my body to her. Mahasattva, the son of Maharata, saw the famished tigress and her cubs. With compassionate thought to save them, he fell down the mountain slope. Now, this is just the Buddha recalling it as a memory, when he was Mahasattva. He's recalling it like a memory. We have a memory of what we ate this morning, but is recalling this like in detail as if it was right then in his mind. The Buddha sees the past, present, and future equally with direct valid cognition. The earth with its mountains shook, scattering various flocks of birds and terrifying herds of deer, and this world remained shrouded in darkness. So he's recalling what happened, Mahapranadana and Mahadeva, his two brothers, looked for him in the great forest. Failing to find Mahasattva, they mindlessly ran about. I think this is more told in the first person, but it's fine. Overcome by grief, their hearts filled with pain, they wandered about the forest. Tears streamed from their faces as they searched for me, for their brother. Mahapranada and Mahadeva, the two young princes, came close to the spot where the weak tigress lay. They saw the tigress and her cubs, their tiger mouths covered with blood. On the ground were a few drops of his blood. Some bones and some hair were scattered about of my previous lives, bones. We have to read it like that. The Buddha's telling it, it's the Buddha's in my previous life, so it would be his. So that's probably what's debated in how to translate this. When they beheld the earth stained with blood, the minds of the princes were ruined without thought. The two princes swooned and fell to the ground, their bodies covered with dust and with dirt. Their entourage of attendants too cried lamentations and were overcome with grief, swiftly sprinkling water on them to try, with arms upraised, they wept to try to revive them, pouring water on them. Buddha's recalling this is what happened. Oh, now I'm seeing my past life, and this is what happened. The beloved queen, the mother who bore him, sat in ease in the palace accompanied by 500 women. The moment he fell, milk streamed from her breast and immediately turned to blood. Her body and limbs were racked by sharp pain as if they were pierced by pins. So he's recalling the experience. She's having a dream. He's recalling the experience the mother's having. Deeply distressed, she was pierced by the arrows of sorrow. Her heart flooded with grief. She approached the king, wretched, weeping before the king. She said to the king, Maharatha, listen to me, king, lord of humans. My body burns with the fear of grief. Milk flowing from the tips of my breast immediately oozed as blood. My body stings as if pierced by needles. My heart is next to bursting. Such are the signs I shall not see my sons again. Such is the fate of my children. So the Buddha's seeing all of this like a movie, that this is what was going on behind the scenes. Be compassionate. Give me my life. Today in my dream, I saw 3 young doves. One dove, my young, sweet and kind, was snatched by a hawk in that place. The sorrow of such dreams has entered my heart. My mind is scorched by distress. Such is the fate of my sons. Before long, I shall succumb to grief. Oh, compassionate one, give me any life. So here she's saying any life, and then she gets 2 back, and it doesn't help. You see in the story, give me anything. Having spoken, the chief queen fainted and fell to the ground. Her mind was senseless, deprived of memory, and her thoughts failed. Upon seeing the sublime queen fainted and fallen on the ground, the whole crowd in that palace too wept and wailed in pitiful voices. At once, the Lord King was overcome by the loss of his son. His ministers and attendants too set out to search for the princes. People all over the city came out of their various homes crying, and with tears flowing, they asked after Mahasattva. So you see in the story, there's like crowds looking for Mahasattva. Is he alive? Is he dead? Where's Mahasattva gone? Today we will glimpse that one who is beloved and pleasing to see, will we not? Suddenly the silent wind of grief, fierce and without noise. Suddenly the silent wind of grief, fierce and without noise, blew throughout the region. Yet due to limitless magic, there was a sharp sound. Then King Maharatha rose up, oppressed with grief and crying. He sprinkled water upon his sublime queen, who had fainted and fallen on the ground. Regaining her senses, the queen arose, her mind forlorn. She asked, "Are my sons dead or do they live?" The king Maharatha said to the chief queen, "The ministers and the attendants too have gone to search for the princes. Do not be downcast in mind. Do not be sorrowful in heart." In this way, having comforted the queen, King Maharatha came out of that royal palace surrounded by a host of ministers. He was crying, weak in mind, feeble in body, and overcome by grief. Many hundreds of beings too cried with tears falling. They ran out of that excellent city to search for the young princes. Seeing the king emerge from the palace, thus they followed after him. The moment the king left that city, they looked to look for his beloved sons. He gazed with staring eyes in every single direction. He saw a man coming his way. So you're seeing the Buddha recalling this, seeing his father in this previous life, so forlorn, seeing his mother in his previous life, so full of sadness. That's why the Buddha wants to free all of these beings, but the Buddha isn't experiencing suffering from this love. The Buddha can do something about this. So the Buddha doesn't feel so handicapped and so pitiful as we do. Seeing the king emerge from the palace, they followed him. The moment the king left that city to look for his beloved son, he gazed with staring eyes in every direction. He saw a man coming his way, his head shaven, his limbs smeared with blood, his clothes covered with dust and dirt. His face was sodden with tears. A fierce grief took hold of King Maharatha's heart. His face covered with tears, he wept, standing with arms upraised. He lamented. Then a certain minister came quickly and swiftly from afar, coming close to King Maharatha, the Lord of Men. He spoke, "O Lord of Men, do not be sad. Your charming sons are alive. Before long, in your presence, you will see your beloved sons." The king continued upon his way, and then a second minister came to him, clad in dusty and sweat-sodden clothes. In a tearful voice, he said to the king, "O great king, 2 of your sons are alive, scorched by the fire of grief. O king, your 3rd son is missing. Mahasattva is captured by impermanence." He saw a starving tigress who had given birth shortly before and was near to eating her cubs. For them, young Mahasattva, his heart filled with compassion, proclaimed enlightenment's great resolve. "All beings I shall set free. In future lives, in future times, may I realize the great enlightenment I so keenly seek." So he says this. They're recalling it. Buddha's recalling. He said, "I said this. This is why I'm a Buddha now. I made this proclamation right before I gave my body away to cherish others more than myself in the most extreme manner possible." Then the Mahasattva jumped down the steep slope. The famished tigress stood up, quickly making his body without flesh. She left the prince with just a few bones. So he's just remembering, like he does this, and, she just eats him and gives the cubs, Upon hearing these dreadful words, his mind was shattered. King Maharatha fainted and fell to the ground. The fire of his grief blazed without relent. The ministers and the attendants too wept wretchedly. Overcome by sorrow, they sprinkled water upon him and lamented with arms upraised. Then the 3rd minister said to this king, there's 3rd, "Today I have seen both princes in the great forest laying on the ground. They had fainted. Their minds were broken. We profusely sprinkled water upon them until they revived and rose up once more. Ablaze, they looked in the 4 directions. Standing briefly, they fell again to the ground. They lamented wretchedly in pitiful voices. With arms uplifted, they sang their brother's praise. The king's mind, embedded extremely low, and was distraught at having lost his son. In unbearable grief, he cried lamentations. Then this thought entered the mind of the king. My son Mahasattva, beloved and charming, has been captured by impermanence. The life of my two sons could now be lost to the fire of grief. Therefore, I should quickly proceed there to see those sons who are pleasing to behold. On swift mounts to the royal court of the royal palace, I will quickly bring my sons. If not, the heart of the mother who bore them is like to burst from the screeching fire of grief. Upon seeing her sons, she will find peace, and therefore her life will not be lost to grief. The king, escorted by a host of ministers mounting his elephant, went to see his two sons. Crying in wretched, pitiful voices, the two princes came their way, calling out their brother's name. The king wept in anguish. He took his two sons and returned home. Quickly, like one in great haste, he presented her sons to the queen. I, the Tathagata Shakyamuni, was formerly Mahasattva, son of King Maharata, who made the tigress well. This is what our gurus do for us. They make us well. They try to lead us to the truth of suchness, and you'll see how skillful this bodhisattva was in about 3 more seconds. I, the Tathagata Shakyamuni, was formerly Mahasattva, son of Maharata, who made the tigress well. Shodhana, the great king, was the king called Maharata, and Queen Maya, the sublime queen, Buddha's Shakyamuni's parents. Pranada became Maitreya, the brother. Likewise, Prince Mahadeva was the youthful Manjushri. The tigress was Maha Prajapati. I always was told that this is Buddha's mother. So we just have to look into this. It's fine. We get it. The 5 bhikshus were her 5 cubs. So the first 5 students of Buddha at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma in Sarnath, India, and in Varanasi, those first 5 students that the Buddha did the ascetic practices with in the forest and starved himself for 6 years with, those 5 people were the 5 cubs that the Buddha gave and made gave his flesh to, and made aspirational prayers for them to be enlightened. And those aspirational prayers, along with those cubs seeing a bodhisattva as so generous, came together, and those beings became Buddha's first students. So we see how connecting is so important. Then the great king, Maharatha, and the great queen wretchedly cried many lamentations. They bared themselves of all ornaments, and together with a great crowd made homage to the remains of the prince. Placing the remains of the Mahasattva at this very place, they built the stupa of 7 jewels. When Mahasattva gave the tigress his body, he made this altruistic wish: by the merit of completely giving my body, may I in future times for eons utterly beyond thought perform the deeds of Buddhas for sentient beings. When this exposition was given, inconceivable, uncountable numbers of beings, including gods and humans, generated the altruistic intention for supreme and perfect enlightenment. And this is the reason, and this is the cause for revealing this stupa here. Then, through the power of the Tathagata's blessing, that stupa entered the ground on that very spot. This ends the 18th chapter, the chapter on the tigress, from the King of Glorious Sutras, the Sublime Golden Light. So incredible to hear the details, more and more of the details. And we can go back and study it more. And I remember Rinpoche saying the 5 starving cubs were, his first students, and the mother was Buddha's mother. But we can check. We will always find variations when it comes to storytelling over the years. And the point is the same, and the meaning is the same. And I hope that this moved you as much as it moved me. So, yeah. We miss Rinpoche. I miss Rinpoche so much every single day. There isn't a morning that I don't just, wish I could ask him something, not even something specific, just like, well, what if I had something? I think like that. But I know I have so many qualified teachers that I can go to that Rinpoche said are qualified, that I don't have fear. I'm not worried. Once I take that through, like, well, what if I have a question? And then I think, well, Rinpoche left me in great hands. Rinpoche showed me what I needed to look for in a teacher, showed me through action what a teacher should sound like, what it should feel like when you're giving a Lamrim teaching, how the person in the audience, you could say the simplest things in the world, and it would move them beyond belief, and someone else could walk in the room and speak of the Svatantrika Prasangika divisions and go through all of these details and have it mean nothing. It's the power of these holy beings that have just had so much effect on my life and continue to affect my life. And I just want to say thank you so much, so much to all of them. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. You see, you're attached to this, in Arya Deva's 400 verses, there's a kind of an analysis of someone losing their son, and why aren't you seeing this as the sign of you are going to die? This son that you've lost as just causes and conditions came together to go into a womb where you put a seed. There was no like special invitation. They didn't say, hey, do you mind if I come? I'm this person who has all these qualities and I look like this and I act like this. And some of these things are annoying and some of these things aren't annoying. None of these things were ordered. None of these things happened because either party said, this is, the relationship that I'm going to have. And when we move into our future lives, we won't take any of these things with us. We'll be all alone. So Arya Deva says that when you lose a son, why don't you immediately think of your own impermanence and see every moment that you're not doing something as an enemy killing you? Why isn't every moment your enemy? You think of every moment as wonderful, but then look at it the right way. See it as your enemy because it just killed you a little bit more. And if it's killing you, that moment's killing you a little bit more every moment, then you better, if death will come and nothing can stop it, and we don't know when, and nothing can help but Dharma. If you're dying more every moment, this moment's killing you, then hopefully in that moment, you're practicing the only thing that can help you when it kills you for good. You. Prayer for the flourishing of Jitsun Kappa's teachings. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation, cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Learned, since he had sensibly sought out learning, reverent, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating it all for beings in doctrine, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the Tripitakas, realized teachings, practicing the three highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Outwardly calm and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle, with great bliss achieved by method the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine, protectors like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayana, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverent holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Did you get me meditation on emptiness? So again, I just want to thank you for, this Rinpoche passed away on March 6, 2022. And here we are in August of 2023. And we're finally able to give Rinpoche a proper blessing ceremony and, get the remains to people who really, really need them. And want them to be able to enhance their own spiritual practice. And I just want to say thank you for giving me kind of inspiration and courage to keep going. I know that many of you have said thank you for the teachings, and that means a lot to me. And I just want to say one more thing, because I think that it's auspicious. Oh, is it? I see. So when we talk about, Rinpoche always talked about the 1,000 Buddhas that will come in this particular time. And the Buddha Shakyamuni is the fourth Buddha. And then Geshe Lobsang Gompo carried everywhere with him the Sutra on 1,000 Buddha's names. Geshe Gompo did. Geshe Lobsang Gompo. So I thought it'd just be auspicious. Why not? To just name the Buddhas, the 3 Buddhas we never hear about before Shakyamuni. So that we don't become so attached to, there's only Buddha Shakyamuni. So in Jeffrey Hopkins' meditation on emptiness, I never even noticed it until some stuff lately. And, they're listed and there's illustrations of those Buddhas. So it's kind of neat. So the first Buddha of the 1,000, Buddha Krachu Chanda. Now, I'm not good with Sanskrit, so you can look this up, but Krachu Chanda. Then the second Buddha, Buddha Kana Kamuni. Third Buddha, Buddha Kashyapa. Fourth Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni. Future Buddha, Buddha Maitreya. So next Buddha that will come will be Buddha Maitreya. So Krachananda, I think that's how they were saying it. Krachananda. Krakuchananda. 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 Kana Kamuni. Kashyapa. Shakyamuni. Maitreya. Okay. So that we'll need a little help with the Krakyu Chanda. Krakyu Chanda. This one. Krakyu Chanda. Anyway. How would you say it? Oh, you don't have it in front of you. Krakuchhanda. You could see my, so the more we say it, the more we'll connect to these. And hopefully I can get to the point where I can say the name properly. But I wanted to introduce that today and say, we don't always have to say things perfectly. We just have to have good intention. Okay. Now, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lajjang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I'm hanging around with some Sanskrit folks who would be appalled by the way that I just did that. So just don't be shy. Just do the best you can, I'll find out how to say it right. I will. It's like that Bodhisattva, Prachika Samuppada, that Geshe Dorji Damdu would always say, the person who asks the question at the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma. And I always go, Prachika Samuppada, until I can go Prachika Samuppada. So it just takes time to make your mouth work funny. And you have to find out, Sanskrit doesn't really have like parts that are hard in it. So you have to kind of flow with it. Madhyamaka. You can't Madhyamika. That's wrong. Madhyamaka. Or Madhyamaka is actually more Madhyamaka. The ka is like a the end of a K, Madhyamaka. So there's arguments even about that. So I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but any mistakes that I've made, we just heard one probably. May they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva, imagining the Vajrasattva's in the space in front of you, inseparable from your root Lama, imagining that light rays and nectar and the color of white, red, and blue are showering down on you and all sentient beings, transforming into white homes, red ahs, and blue homes, purifying yours and all sentient beings, body, speech, and mind, respectively. And imagine that through the power of this mantra, any mistakes I've made or that you've heard are purified. Om benza sata samaya manabalaya benza sata zena bajijadita meva vazudukaya meva vazubukaya meva anaraja meva zavaziri me braja savakamasujya me kitam chuyam kurum hao bhagavan savadata kata benza mame moga benza bhava mahasamaya sapa ahom hey. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama, who Rinpoche said was our protector deity. And we have a very beautiful tanka who Rinpoche said is, no, that's really Paul and Lama. Now, I know there's tankas, but that's really Paul and Lama, just so you know, Jeff. Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jajun Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jajun Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jajun Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jajun Jarama 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 Dunjo Galarajemo Ramawaja Daja Dunjo. Any obstacles you have to meeting with the Dharma, may they be removed through this mantra of Drapasundri, the three wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hayagriva Garuda Om Ve. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors to traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Now a prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We have to make these prayers, these aspirations. We have to keep requesting our teachers to teach so they remain in this world and don't go beyond, to somewhere else because they think we aren't in need of them. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I remember filling stupas with Rinpoche, statues with Rinpoche, and putting one of Rinpoche's teachers was Khensur Rinpoche, and he would just call him Gen. He just call him Gen a lot of times. And I remember putting Khensur Rinpoche's hair into a Buddha, thinking, oh, this is so amazing. But not thinking like, what's this like for Rinpoche? Take all special appearances aside. He's putting his hair of his teacher into a statue. And I got to feel what that feels like. And what we would normally think it feels like, it's not like that. If you've practiced and have some modicum of guru devotion, it's actually pretty happy, blissful, powerful, different kind of feeling. So people say, oh, this, the bones and impermanence. But when it's around a Lama, we just heard these are things that are just permeated with virtue, with just good deeds and love and compassion. And there's something that they leave for us to kind of connect with. It's a gift. This is what relics are, according to the Buddha. They're like gifts that the Buddhas leave us. Gifts they give to us to be able to have a treasure to remember that the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord, not to objectify them and think they can purify our negativities, wash away our negativities, remove them with the hands, give some realization from the stupa to us. But it's by knowing that we can become that pure being because we have a mental consciousness that's in the nature of clear light and unsullied, that we can then look at this stupa and say, I know one who did it. And I know it can be done. And this holy being, if I relate to this holy being, I can do this quicker, much quicker. Okay. Now the prayer for Rinpoche, which I have printed out now. I was a little disheveled last teaching from all the bones and stuff. And I, even forgot the teaching had another half an hour and didn't have this copied. But we did something. Complex Yogi poses as a simple monk, written on March 6th, 2023 by me, Jeff Allen, in honor and supplication to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche. Homage to Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. Rinpoche actually met with Aryatara, has it written down in his diary, the date that it happened. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, Ah, Om. Om, Ah, Om, Om, Ah, Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and beg us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teaching of the extensive deeds and profound view lineage flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now the sound is stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. May we all become Buddhas for the sake of all sentient beings as quickly as possible, while recognizing that that wish is empty of inherent existence. We are empty of inherent existence. All sentient beings are empty of inherent existence. Our Lama is empty of inherent existence. The stupa is empty of inherent existence. This microphone is empty of inherent existence. This table is empty of inherent existence, because it's not one with, inherently one with, or separate from its parts. Therefore, anything that isn't inherently one with or separate from its parts necessarily is not inherently, objectively, intrinsically existent. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And I hope you move closer and closer every one of those moments that are killing you to Buddhahood. Thank you.